Hi everyone, Cedar here again, and today I want to talk to you about finding inspiration and keeping it. As an artist, you can't just assume that inspiration will always come to you. If you sit there and wait for inspiration to strike, it will happen from time to time, but if you don't do anything to cultivate it and keep your own flame alive, if you will, you won't be able to produce good work on a regular basis. Okay, so what does inspiration come from? Well, the truth is inspiration is everywhere. It can be found in almost anything. The trick is to make yourself receptive and be opportunistic and looking out for the inspiration so that you see it when it's right in front of you. So here are some things you can do to cultivate the receptive, opportunistic frame of mind that will make inspiration more obvious to you so you recognize it when it's there. Okay, something that has always been very important to me in finding inspiration is the process of introspection. And let me explain what that means. Now, everyone has a different process of doing this, but what works for me is writing down lists of things, keeping a journal, setting aside time regularly to just sit down and organize all your ideas. So what I do is I sometimes just sit down and write down everything that's in my mind, whether it's valuable or not, or whether it seems to be worth something or not. I just try to empty my mind to get it all out. In my experience, about 99.9% of the junk that's in your mind is just useless noise, and the other 0.1% is where your best art comes from. So it's a continual process, almost daily, of trying to sort through all the junk in your mind and glean that little nugget of information that tells you where to go next. It's part cerebral and part emotional. So for something to be really valuable as a starting point for some artistic expression, it does have to excite you, but you also have to be able to explain why it's so awesome. So writing things down will help you sort all of that out. Okay, now something that is crucially important in order to stay inspired is to have enough white space in your life. What is white space? It's my term for quiet time and solitude. Now, white space is it's when you're intentionally unplugged from the world and intentionally protecting yourself from all distractions. This means no internet, no telephone, no TV, no other people talking to you. So I'm an internet addict, just like probably most people in this day and age. I have an iPhone. I have 2 small children, both under age 3. And so, trust me, I know how hard it can be to find that white space in your life. You have to be very intentional about it. Some days I only get 10 minutes of white space, but take what you can get. The idea is to silence all the input from the outside world and just let your mind be still and listen to itself instead of everything else. And that way you allow your ideas and perceptions to flow in, to occupy that void. Okay, here are other things that I do regularly whenever I feel stuck. You can do any or all of these things. The first thing is I look at lots of art. I find other artists who I really admire and allow myself to just ruminate on their techniques and what must have inspired them, and I get inspired by the littlest things, the way somebody did some brushwork or color, You can spend some time in nature, just go for a walk, find some trees, find some water. Nature is naturally quiet, and it's peaceful, and it just sort of instantly just puts you into that white space. Within a few minutes of being in a natural setting. If you feel stuck in your art, try something new. You can try a new medium, you can try a new technique, you can just sit down and play without the goal of actually creating anything. And sometimes that'll open you up to a new way of looking at things, or make you aware of something new that you want to try. You can also do what I call setting the mood. This is actually when you just adjust your surroundings to make them more conducive to inspiration. Clean your workspace, that's always a big one. Clutter begets clutter. Physical clutter makes the clutter in your mind seem worse. So get rid of the clutter. You can turn on some music, you can light a candle, just do anything that switches things up and is pleasing to your senses. Get some exercise, that's a big one. We release physical tension when we exercise, and I think that when you release physical tension, it allows you to also release mental tension or rigid ways of thinking. Now, if something that you're working on is not inspiring you, there's no reason why you should keep devoting energy towards that. Now, I don't want to say you should, quit very easily at the first sign of discouragement. I'm not saying that. It's a delicate balance to find the commitment and the dedication to see a project through while also remaining excited about what you're doing. And both are important. It's natural for your level of passion, to wax and wane throughout a long-term project. But if you are really, really not feeling it and you know deep down that it's a dead end, don't waste any more time on it. It's okay to scrap something if you need to. Okay, minimize time around negative people or people who sap your energy in any way, and instead consciously surround yourself with people who fill you up, or people who inspire you and whose good example you can follow. This is, of course, good advice no matter what, but it really does help to become inspired by just surrounding yourself with positive people. Another thing that's just good advice in general is to every day practice gratitude. So inspiration is always in front of you. Whether or not you see it is the thing. If you are too busy or preoccupied being discontent about everything, you're not going to notice what is so inspiring about that day or about your life in general. When you practice gratitude and actually, write down the things that you're grateful for and say thank you to people, it puts you in a positive mindset that allows you to see just the wonder in all things. Now, this, in my opinion, is the most important thing. When all else fails, just sit down and go to work. Just start working. If you learn to do this regularly, you'll understand that it's forced sometimes. Sometimes you sit down and you have to force yourself to work, but after a few minutes of that forced work, you will sort of get into the flow. Not always, but often enough that it can lead to inspiration just through the very act of sitting down and doing it, whether you feel like it or not. Remember, intention means nothing without action. So that's my take on inspiration, and hopefully my thoughts on this give you a little inspiration today, so that you can feel empowered to go get some good work done. And I just wanted to read you a couple quotes that I jotted down that I thought were particularly insightful or helpful. Okay. You can't wait for inspiration. You have to go after it with a club. Jack London. What moves men of genius, or rather what inspires their work, is not new ideas, but their obsession with the idea that what has already been said is still not enough. Eugène Delacroix. Amateurs look for inspiration. The rest of us just get up and go to work. Chuck Close. When inspiration doesn't come, I go halfway to meet it. Sigmund Freud. Stop. Breathe. Allow yourself the luxury of doing nothing for a moment, or an hour, or even a day. It is in emptiness that inspiration will appear. Carol Katchen. Inspiration is there all the time, for anyone whose mind is not clouded over with thoughts whether they realize it or not. Agnes Martin. Inspiration exists, but it has to find you working. Pablo Picasso. So I hope to follow my own inspiration this week, and I hope that I'm very prolific, and I hope the same for you. So now turn off your computer, and turn off your phone and go find that inspiration.